Be honest. Are your riffs a mess? They might be slow, they might be sloppy, or maybe they just fall apart halfway through. Here's the crazy part. A diva over 100 years ago, Lily Lehman, was already teaching singers how to fix this problem. Her secret, she called it velocity. And if you want clean, fast, jaw-dropping riffs, you're going to need it. We've already been talking about who Lily Lehman is, and I've done quite a few videos on this text specifically. So if you haven't yet checked those out, start here. Otherwise, just keep watching in succession until you reach this video. Now, we talked a lot about the strength of the voice with the last video with the great scale, but this is kind of the complete opposite of what we were just looking at, which is important, right? Because we want that flexibility and that ability to have both a strong voice and also an agile one. If you can't sing riffs, it's because your voice is too slow. And what might be causing the slowness in your voice is too much breath pressure, which means you're pushing out too much air or pushing out too much sound. You might only be singing long tones instead of moving up and down. Nothing wrong with long tones, by the way. Long tones are just as important. Or you also might just be adding weight to your voice. And that could be either kind of gripping in the voice or pushing, like I said before, trying to make your voice sound bigger than it naturally is. I think the slowness really comes down to just trying to be too loud. So the first step in curing this, not necessarily an ailment, but inability to sing quickly, we need to relax the volume a little bit. Lily Lehman starts in her book by saying, to give velocity, practice first slowly, then faster and faster, figures of 5, 6, 7, and 8 notes, etc., upward and downward. If one has well mastered the grade slow scale with the nasal connection, the forward placement, skill in singing rapid passages will be developed quite of itself, because they both rest on the same foundation, and without the preliminary practice can never be understood. So that forward placement, that wasabi placement that I've talked about before, is essential when it comes to finding the agility. Place the palate in a nasal position, the larynx and the tongue on A. Tense the chest muscles and the diaphragm toward each other. So that's another breath direction. I would say think of it more as like letting out a little bit of air as you're singing. And that means it might be quiet, so let it be quiet at first. And attack the lowest tone on the height of the highest tone of the figure. Force the breath toward the chest muscles by vigorously articulating towards the chest without losing entirely the nasal position, and run up the scale with great firmness and tension while thinking the larynx has downward in front. Word of caution when it comes to reading text on singing. Oftentimes it gets way too anatomical to the point where it's like, I don't understand a word that you just said. So instead of trying to micromanage the individual body parts, think of it more as like feelings. So for the nasal position, she says, position the nasal. What the hell does that mean? Ignore that, but find the wasabi resonance. That's what she means. The chest pressure, she's talking about making sure that your chest isn't collapsing inward as you're singing, right? That you're staying upright and open, and the diaphragm is moving upward, right? That's naturally what's happening when you're exhaling, but we want to make sure that we're not releasing all the air at the same time, right? So slow release of air, thinking that you're inhaling as you're exhaling, is a great way to do that. And then as we sing from low to high, we need to already be prepared for that high note. So even though we might be starting on a middle C, but we're going up to D5, we need to be prepared for that D5. We need to think that we're already singing that D5, even though we're starting on C4. And then do the reverse. If you're starting on D5 and then going back down to C4, you need to be prepared for that low note, so that coming down is almost like a zip line. You already are attached to the other note. You're already ready to go. So, like she says, we need to practice this slowly at first and with only a few notes. Let's do just that much. And if you have a lower voice, sing an octave lower. Do it on E, like those vowels we talked about in this video if you haven't yet watched. And make sure that you're maintaining that you're not pushing out air and sound. Let it be quiet, let it be piano if that's the case, but we have to make sure we're still on the voice, right? So there's a difference between E, that's off the voice, the air is escaping, and that's on the voice, but it's piano, and I'm just thinking about a little bit of air at the same time. Okay, so we're just going to do that. We want to make sure, and Lily Lehman stresses this, that we are going and if you've already mastered the grade scale, you shouldn't be doing this anyway, but Oftentimes that happens when we sing a lot of riffs. We want to go ha 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 because it makes it easier, but we can't do that because that's fake agility, not real agility, and you're blowing too much air through your chords. You're going to tie yourself out. Don't do that. So we're going to do thinking of that little airstream either inhaling as you exhale. For me, that's what helps me the most with runs is I'm inhaling as I inhaling figuratively, not literally, as I'm exhaling. Let's try it. Ready If that was too fast for you, slow it down even more, but that's where I would start with just those 3 notes. After 3 notes feels pretty easy, we're going to go to 5. Same thing, E with that wasabi resonance, really controlled breath. E, right? Thinking of the high note as you start, and then as you get to the top, thinking of that low note to come back down, right? It's a zip line. We're not just kind of starting here and somehow magically appearing here. It's a zip line. We have to already be attached to that high note. Let's try it. It's a little rough for me today, but that's the idea. Once you get 5 notes, do 9. It's a big jump, but not really. It's just 4 more notes. Okay? All the way up to it's just a little over an octave. And I'm going to do all the vowels on this one, starting with E. E, so we can find that wasabi resonance. E, E, O. Just because I'm opening my mouth doesn't mean that resonance falls. It stays out here, right? And we're still controlling the breath. Ready? E, O. E, O. E, So some notes are a hit or miss for me, and that would mean that I would need to slow that exercise down a little bit more to be able to ensure that I'm not butchering any note, that every note is as consistent as the one that precedes it. And that is what makes or breaks a sloppy run or a not sloppy run. And for those of you who are like, okay, great, this is opera. How do I apply this to, like, if I want to sing a Mariah Carey song? You can apply it the same way. Even if you're belting, right? We still want to approach the belting the same way with good breath support, a free throat, and with good placement. So it's really important, whether you want to sing runs or not, to work on this anyway. Lily Lehman actually talks about this a little bit. She says, every voice that has learned to move rapidly and lightly retains its freshness much longer than one that is forced by slow and heavy work. And that's why her career lasted so long. She was able to do both. She was able to have strength in her voice, but while also maintaining this level of agility and freeness. So if your voice feels heavy or clumsy or weak, Lehman would say add velocity. Practice the way that we did today, starting small and then increasing the amount that we sing. If this helped, give it a like. Leave any comments down below that you may have, and until then, I will see you next time.